Hi, Misha here, and since Steyr USA has started shipping fresh Aug A3 M1s, both traditional and NATO magazine versions, again after a couple year break, I don't know, I've felt like revisiting the AUG, the Universal Army Rifle, and its many variants and modular configurations. Already looked at what makes the M1 different from the A3 and talked about the NATO pros and cons. And in this video, let's go big and talk about the Aug LMG, or as it's often called and I think even officially known, the Aug H-Bar. Either way, the heavy barrel version designed for section support, squad automatic rifle, light machine gun, but also there's a closely related variant used as a DMR. And since the Aug is so modular, the difference is really just the barrel assembly. So let's get into it. The assembly consists of three components to note. The barrel itself, which is longer than a standard, be it 16 or 20. This is a 24.5-inch barrel. It's also a heavier profile. Now, not exponentially heavier, like on some light machine gun conversions. Part of it is it still has to fit in the standard receiver, and part of it is you can only get so heavy. But it is thicker, especially out front. And it has the standard fold down foregrip. And then it has a special muzzle brake. This is a true muzzle brake compensator recoil check. This is not a flash hider. It screws on to the 13mm threads, and it is a very ornate, intricately machined piece. It's not exactly a three-prong, but it is. It has a triangular form with holes in the end, and these actually lead the channels that come back and tap gas off from the barrel. There's also holes on each side, but not on the bottom. Yeah. Very ornate, and frankly, very effective as a muzzle brake. One of the most effective. And unlike a lot of modern muzzle brakes, it's neither large nor heavy, and it doesn't add excessive concussion or noise either. In fact, this is designed to be compact and lightweight to save on the whole weight and length of the gun. It's actually shorter than the standard Aug birdcage. And then our final component is a folding bipod system. You know, most all light machine guns have some type of bipod. It does fold out, set you down somewhere here, preferably not on the rifle. When it's folded up, it effectively acts as a foregrip or heat shield against any kind of barrel heat. Here we have the legs, kind of funny, even not in the gun, it's freestanding, and they're adjustable. Now, this muzzle device is original, Steyr Austrian. The barrel is one of the older ones, turned by FN for Steyr using Austrian mandrels, and it is called hammer forged and chrome lined. And this is a bipod unit made by Ratworks, quite closely mirroring the original. In effect, in function, it does the same thing, but there are some differences in the way it's cut. And the reason Ratworks had to make this is because Steyr in Austria stopped making the LMG or H-Bar bipod a long time ago. In fact, they claim not even to have the tooling these days to start production up again. So, something had to be done. Funnily enough, they still make the muzzle brakes, or at least they did a few years ago. But that's because these appear not only on the LMG version, but also on some sport and other versions, like, for example, the Aug Z or Aug Z. And basically, yeah, that's what makes the Aug H-Bar. And of course, all we have to do is pull our barrel out, 16 in this case, and plug this barrel in. So here we are inserted. This foregrip not only acts when you're shooting, but it's also there intentionally for quickly changing the barrel even if it's hot. Remember when you do change a barrel on an AUG to have your bolt locked in the rear position. Otherwise, yeah, you won't have great luck. See what I mean about this kind of covering the barrel? And of course, well, standard 30 round mags will work perfectly well if you're going to have a light machine gun or squad automatic weapon. An extended mag is always helpful, and essentially from the beginning, Steyr has made a very good 42 rounder that doesn't hang down too much, considering standard translucent polymer. And that's essentially all you need. The H-Bar can fire from a closed bolt, some versions do, and they typically have a cyclic rate of around 650 to 680 rounds per minute. But if you need more, or you're worried about overheating, there is a variant, a modification, to allow the Select Fire version to fire from an open bolt. And because the system is so modular, this is very easy to do. You just need a different bolt carrier and a new trigger pack. Really all you need is a new sear and a couple other bibs and bobs. And also the trigger itself needs to be modified to work differently. But yeah, relatively straightforward. So they do offer it as an open bolt, and that gets your RPM up to about 750 rounds. And Steyr says that the open bolt heavy barrel can be fired 250 rounds more than the standard version before there's a danger of overheating. Part of it is the heavier barrel, but a lot of it is the heat that gets released because of the open bolt. So, a little bit of an advantage there. Accuracy is good with these, but they're not really designed necessarily for that. Keep in mind you have a bipod clamped with a collar behind your flash hider, so that's on the barrel. So that's not going to do great things for your harmonics, but they still hold their own quite well. And with the 223 cartridge, 5.56 NATO, yes, these were always 5.56 chambered. Either one. With the 1 and 9 twist and a 24 and some change barrel, yeah, you're going to get some decent velocity buildup and all that good stuff. And of course it has the standard AUG gas system with normal, adverse, and even a shutoff for grenade firing if needed. And everything else is pretty much the same. And here the bipod is deployed and fully extended. It's got some good reaching on it there. And by its very nature, being a bullpup, you're going to have some monopoding going on, even with a 30 round mag. It's just kind of how it is. But of course, resting against your shoulder, that would not be an issue. Now this is an A3 with the Picatinny rail and the standard 1.5 power optic. On the Aug H-Bar LMG, there's been several versions. In the 80s, you had usually a 1.5 power standard scope, But once the special receiver types and the A2s came along, a removable optic rail version called the Aug H-Bar T, sometimes the Aug LMG NT, came along, and this usually had a 4-power optic. It could be Schmidt-Bender, Zeiss, or other. And that's carried over, of course, to the A3 versions, where the Picatinny rail has become a standard now. And there are basically, two configurations, two uses. SAW or as a DMR, designated marksman rifle. Obviously, the DMR version is closed bolt, and it tends to have the nicer optics. And there are versions, typically the NT, that are made for night vision, or at least set up as such. Again, the AUG is so configurable that you can just change it around to suit a customer. And that's the thing, we don't really have a good record of which militaries use the heavy barrel AUG, because you can buy a regular A1, A2, A3, and then if you need, buy heavy barrels. The Austrian army has issued these as a support weapon, and according to Wikipedia, for what that's worth, the Luxembourgian army uses it as well. So I'm sure others have, at least in small numbers. Convertible guns are fun. And even though this is a longer, heavier version, the specs on it are not bad at all. As presented here, it's under 3 feet long, about 35 inches. Like I said, the barrel is 24.5 inches, actually just a smidgen under. So good barrel length. And without a magazine, it weighs between 8.5 and 9 pounds. The difference is because of the different optics and rail. Basically, are you using the original carry handle 1.5 receiver? Are you using the early special receiver, the later A3 receiver? And probably open or close bolt might add or subtract a couple of ounces. Now, like I said, the newer A3 H-Bar types have kind of gone away from the classic bipod. These days, if they still sell one, it tends to use a Picatinny rail here, where a customer can attach a more conventional bipod, for example, from Harris or what have you. These are still available at Ratworks, as far as I know. The unit with collar and everything is like $200. Not bad for a custom part. These, as I've said in previous videos, I had to bring in from Austria because we looked into having them made here in the US. Even a simplified version was just going to cost too much. This is a very Baroque muzzle brake, but it is incredibly effective and just cool. And to me, I mean, it's fine to have a birdcage on a heavy barrel, but I really think this kind of completes the package. Would I like to have an original bipod? Sure, of course, but it's hard to find them loose, and if you find pre-ban Steyr heavy barrel assemblies, even used, they're going for about $2,000, so gonna have to pass on that. Luckily, 42 round mags are not too hard to find, at least relatively speaking. And again, these barrels will drop into a pre-ban gun, a modern A3, M1, heck, even like a USR can probably be fitted with one. And they are very nice, high quality barrels. So with that, let's kind of end by comparing this with some contemporary assault rifle types turned into light machine guns and see how the Aug H-Bar stacks up. I thought these would be the two best contemporaries because of being upgraded from standard rifles and also firing equivalent cartridges. The Soviet RPK-74 and the Colt, or Mishaco, later Colt Canada, M16 LMG, itself called the H-Bar later on. So, how do they compare? Well, as far as length, the RPK is our longest at 41 inches. To be fair, a folding stock version was always available, but until the RPK-74M, it wasn't a standard feature, and the Molot produced relatively few folding versions. The vast majority were fixed stockers. For the M16, of course, a folding stock, not really practical, especially with the hydraulic buffer in these. And we have an overall length of just shy of 40 inches. So there's less than 1.5 inches difference. But then we get down to our Steyr, and like I said, this is right at 35 inches with the muzzle brake and whatnot. So it is half a foot shorter than the RPK-74. Actually, if you count the bird cage, this is probably more than 41 inches, come to think of it. Anywho, and still over 4 inches shorter than our M16. What about weight? Now, as I said, this is between 8.5 and 9 pounds. The RPK, depending on the furniture used, is about 10.5 pounds, give or take. So, nearly a kilogram heavier in certain situations. And the M16 here, thanks to its very heavy barrel and bipod and everything else, this is just about 12.5 pounds. So by far the heaviest. So our AUG is our lightest by a decent measure. So it's lighter and shorter. And yet it has the longest barrel, just a hair under 24.5 inches. The M16, of course, has a standard 20-inch barrel. Well, not standard in the sense of weight, but you know what I mean, standard length. And the RPK-74 has a 23.25 inch barrel. So it's quite close to the AUG, but still yet. So longer barrel. Now that's only relative. I will say that as far as thickness, the M16 definitely has the heaviest barrel, which can have some heat sink benefits. For being 5.45 by 39, this has quite a thick barrel too. Not as thick. And the AUGs, it's about like the RPKs. Sorry, I didn't have someone check the actual diameter. But there's one real big advantage here. These two have fixed barrels. You're not changing them in the field no matter what. The AUG, like a lot of medium and heavy machine guns, features not just a changeable barrel, but a quick change barrel in the field. So theoretically, if it was needed, a gunner could carry a spare barrel or even more. Also, this fires from an open bolt. Now, the M16 LMG initially fired from an open bolt too. In the early versions like this would if this wasn't a semi-auto. Later versions, made in the 21st century, often went back to a closed bolt though. Whereas the RPK-74, like its predecessor RPK, always fired from a closed bolt, and always has, except for some of the newest variants coming out from Molot. Meaning that sustained rate of fire is probably the weakest on the RPK because of overheating. The M16 is helped because of the heavy barrel, Also, the hydraulic buffer does some nice things. And while the AUG might get hotter quicker, you just pop the barrel out and let it cool off. Quite a nice feature. Rate of fire is roughly the same in the 600s to 700s for these, depending on how you have them exactly set up. As far as feeding devices, the RPK-74, of course, can use standard 30-round Kalashnikov AK-74 mags, and it was commonly issued with 45-round stick mags, not a drum though. The M16 originally was just issued with standard 30-round mags, although of course newer drum types, say example the Beta C, or even newer quad stacks, the 60-rounders, will of course fit it because it takes standard Stanag mags. And again, the AUG, the LMG H-Bar version, would have commonly been issued with 42-round mags. A very nice thing for that era, so virtually the same capacity as the RPK-74. And of these three, this is the only one that had an optic, be it a 1.5 or a 3 or a 4 power, as standard from the get-go. So my point is, while converting a rifle into a light machine gun is always an exercise in compromises and oftentimes not all that successful, look at the FALO, the fallow. The AUG, because of its very nature, does seem best suited, at least when we look at these criteria. It also has quite a decent accuracy report. And it just looks cool. A light machine gun bullpup. As long as it's not an L85, or excuse me, the L86, who wouldn't love that? Let's wrap this up. Here we have it on the bipod with the legs fully collapsed in. Ratworks really did a good job with these, and I've told the story many times in the past about how I was related a bit to this whole project coming to be. It just seemed a shame when these 24-inch barrels were on offer years ago not to be able to outfit one with the proper gear to make an LMG. Why not? Now, it should be noted this bipod is really specifically made for this barrel. The barrel has a cutout right here for this collar to go on. If you pick up one of these barrels, it's not going to fit a 20-incher, not without major modifications to the bipod and barrel. And it won't fit a 16-incher. There's just not room for it to collapse back. That said, they do have a version that instead of mating to this traditional collar, actually would mate to a pick rail. So if you've got a 20-inch or 16-inch AUG, you can replace the foregrip here with the pick rail connector insert adapter. You just push this pin out, put the pick rail on, pin it on, and you can put your bipod on that. And according to Ratworks, this is plenty sturdy. It can even take the weight and recoil from a Barrett 50 caliber. That's what they told me. So, hey, don't shoot the messenger, right? Certainly not with a Barrett, please. Classic, and just a lot of fun to shoot. No recoil. In fact, as we've joked in past videos, it recoils so little with this brake that it almost pushes itself down. Like, the recoil is just non-existent. But as I've been revisiting the AUG configurations, this one just, why not? It really is one of my favorites. I've had it for years. It still delights me. And I can put the 16-inch barrel in. I could even put the 20-inch barrel in from the pre-ban. I can put this one in. Or I can put the 9mm para barrel in, which is what we'll talk about in the next Aug video. But I think that's enough for today. If anyone else has done one of these heavy barrel configurations, would love to hear about your experiences in the comments. And did a few of these barrels for friends, so there's a few that I assembled that are floating around the interwebs. With that, I greatly appreciate it. If you could, please do like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please check out the link to our Patreon page. This is Misha, and I will catch you very soon next time.